All right, fire away, my man.
So a similar problem to what we kind of talked about before, just where there are so many variables in this. And Beth, a little bit of background. We're a mobile veterinary service trying to send vets to people's houses to help with pet healthcare. Um, there are so many variables around the price and the product offering and how we promote it and whatnot. And I feel like if we were a different kind of, maybe an e-commerce site or something, we could very quickly uh, set up split tests and or maybe different branded sites and do a whole bunch of different experiments. But I'm finding out with just due to the nature of the business, we're basically healthcare, for animals, but we're healthcare, and you need to have a certain amount of credibility and kind of yeah, I guess credibility is the right word to sort of be a real service. And for example, one of the channels that we're testing with is retirement homes and pet friendly residential buildings, trying to
Mm-hmm.
get them to promote us to their clients or to their residents, and or let us do mini clinics at their facilities. But
Mm.
the turnaround time for these are like weeks to months, where you have a phone call with the resident coordinator, then you maybe have the doctor go in and meet the person, then they schedule it for a few weeks down the road so they can promote it accordingly. So it's just a very slow feedback loop with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these kind of offline-y, grassrootsy channels. And what we've heard from other mobile vets is that that's how you build your business as a mobile vet service. You got to be, pounding the pavement, go into the events, setting up these things. But it's not like, a Google AdWords campaign where within 24 to 48 hours you've got a really good idea if it's working or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then when we try to test, different product pricing configurations, where a subscription plan or a kind of Chinese menu of different services, and then even testing different pricing levels across that, it gets kind of complicated. So I'm
Mm.
so that's I think that's my biggest challenge right now: how to find the right mix of price, product, and promotion, but keeping in mind that it just takes a while to
Mm-hmm.
do some of these tests.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it. I understand your pain with all of these different components, all of these knobs that we can turn,
Hmm.
and this desire to get feedback really quickly. We sort of can't do it all, right? We can't put all the pieces in the soup together and then see what and get it done within weeks sometimes, because I think you're right. Like there's people are need to have a level of trust in the product that you're providing. So it makes sense that lean doesn't necessarily mean wicked fast. It means eliminating the waste, right? And so if you've determined that, look, I need to have X amount of testimonials or need to have X amount of time in front of a person before I can test this particular channel, then that's the investment we have to make.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so and I totally agree that mixing all of these things at once. We talked about this before, right? If we mix a new channel with a new product and a new price and it fails, we can't tell which one broke,
Yeah.
right? Um, so so which one of these feels like it's most important to figure out first? The channel, the product, or the price?
I'll probably give you a different answer depending on the day, but right here, let me close my door because I think there's some background noise. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but I want to be
It's not too bad.
respectful as possible. So my gut tells me that it's the channel is
Okay.
the harder. We've not had good success. We've gotten a few calls, haven't and not had good success with online channels like Facebook and AdWords and a couple other things we tested. We
Hmm.
have had some success with the offline stuff, doing these, having our my co-founder who's a vet show up at these groomers and trainers and other stuff, and just pressing the flesh and talking to people.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
again, that's a very slow process of, uh,
Yeah.
of getting that done. So, but yeah, I guess my answer today would be the channel, and doing a
Yeah.
bunch of these channel tests.
Yeah. I would think you're right that the
Mhm.
channel is the harder part, because once you get the channel, now you've got a funnel where you can start experimenting with different products and different prices.
Mhm.
And once you found that eternal source of new customers, so that makes sense to me. Um, So then, what's your approach now? I mean, if you feel like that's the right place, what are you going to keep doing that you're already doing, and what are you thinking about changing?
Yeah, so we've got these what we call mini clinics in the works right now. First one's going to be 2 weeks from, or about a week and a half from today, where the doctor goes and just gives vaccinations and wellness exams, and we've done those at a couple different kinds of facilities. Like I said, groomers. We're going to be probably doing some at some tech companies around in the Seattle. We're in Seattle, by the way. Only that's where the vet co-founder happens to be. So we're talking to a bunch of different kinds of let's call them channel partners. So the groomers, the trainers, the walkers I talked about, tech companies in Seattle who might want to have a vet on site, their employees.
Nice.
Like I said, retirement communities who are proving a bit tough. Residential buildings that are very dog friendly. Apparently, there's these in Seattle, especially these buildings that built kind of around pet owners. So that might be something. And we're sort of brainstorming other things like, let's call them other channels like that we could approach and basically say, hey, we're a vet, we'll do cheap stuff, so we can build some relationships with potential clients.
Mm-hmm.
To do stuff.
Okay, great.
But I'm sure we could do some more creative brainstorming around other ways to kind of do community outreach, I guess is the right word.
And walk me through, what does success look like for one of these experiments?
Well, we're going to generate some revenue at these experiments. So that just if nothing else, we'll be able to probably put a few $100s in the bank.
Okay.
And then we're basically creating medical records for every person we see and getting an email address. So that we'll know, and the dirty little truth with at least veterinary care, I assume human health care as well, is that once they know a little bit about your history, you're then basically set on a CRM drip campaign. Come back every 6 to 12 months. I've learned a lot about the ugly world of veterinary healthcare. So the point is to basically just get some contact information and then bother these people every few weeks or months to come back or to schedule another visit.
Makes sense. Okay, great. So success looks like some amount of revenue coming in, but then also some number of contact information.
Basically email address and a reason to get back in touch with them again in a few weeks or months, and maybe even sooner than that if there's some kind of a pressing issue that we identify.
Okay, great. And I know before we talked about like an ROI for each of these experiments, like your return. So in this case, what's the return you're measuring?
Well, there's I guess there's the direct return in terms of just the money we generate on site, and then there's obviously the down the road return of what's kind of the LTV of each of these people that we pick up at these clinics. And that's going to take a little while to really get a number for.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on measuring return on just the number of contacts you get, like emails you get?
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it in the short term.
Yeah.
Like emails per hour or something like that.
And then if you were able to measure the actual time it took, like to do the whole thing, to get the meetings, to actually do the clinic, etc. So that's like your time spent. And then you can also take into account calendar time. So once I engage this channel, it takes X amount of days, minutes, years, whatever, to get my return. You can at least compare these experiments with each other to see which one's returning and has the biggest return.
Yeah, and then it becomes a matter of what you use as the price or the cost for our time, and that's where the ROI can look really good or really bad depending on what.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comparing it to like Google AdWords, right, where there actually is actual spent money as opposed to time. Okay, so we've got these different channel experiments. So what do you? I mean, it sounds frustrating. The idea of just focusing on one channel. Does that resolve your angst, or is there something else that we can do?
No, well, I think the question you asked me is a good one. What is the most critical one, and I think it is the channel. So, matter of testing the channel as much as possible, and maybe having talk to a whole bunch of other people and see if they've got some other clever ideas for other ways to get in front of pet owners and maybe even come up with some more creative things we can do at these facilities, more than just a little mini clinic. Maybe there's some other ways we can kind of add value at different types of places. And a lot of that's just going to come out of conversations with these, the HR benefits person at Google Seattle, or the activity manager at an old home at a retirement center in Seattle, stuff like that. To see where a vet could add some value at these different places.
Okay. Well, I like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I like the approach of focusing on the channel and experimenting the hell out of that. Talk to me about the difference between using what we call an intermediated channel, this channel where you have partners that you're relying on, versus a direct channel where you can grow your own contacts directly with pet owners.
So one, I guess depending on your definition of direct, so we've done some other things like plastered like $50 home visit or $50 house call flyers all over certain neighborhoods of Seattle.
Okay.
That's had a little bit of success. We've had one appointment generated from that so far, but we just plastered a whole bunch more yesterday and today.
Okay.
That's a more direct one. What would be some examples of some other? Well, obviously, I'd say the online stuff is more direct. We just sort of signed up for a premium Yelp account, and we'll be doing some Yelp ads and encouraging people to write reviews. So I would argue that's another direct one.
Okay.
And then we've got my poor co-founder going to dog parks and accosting pet owners as a vet, and introducing himself and telling him that we've got this new service. I mean, part of the challenge is the fact that there's some distance. I'm in San Francisco, he's in Seattle, and if I were on the ground, I would be out really bothering people. So we've used a little bit of TaskRabbit to do the flyers, but we may do some more TaskRabbiting to have these people show up at dog parks with business cards and/or doggy toys to make people aware of our existence.
I love these things. This is very creative and awesome, and you guys are doing a great job, sort of getting exposure in a lot of different places. Are mini clinics, is that something doable at a dog park?
That's an interesting idea, just showing up and providing
Right?
Yeah, that is actually.
Right?
I'm going to write that down. That is kind of interesting. I don't know how my it's been really challenging, or not challenging, but interesting, dealing with a very highly trained medical professional and getting him to do sort of out of the box stuff.
Yeah,
right. How he feels, setting up shop on the side of a road.
Right. Well, I mean, if he can do it in some rando's house,
yeah, exactly.
He should be able to do it. Yeah, I mean, because if there's a tent and toys and stuff like this, and there's puppies playing, and get some friends to bring their dogs and play around, or cats or whatever. I guess they're dogs. They'll all be dogs. And make it look like there are some people there, and now you don't have to wait on anyone. You could do it. You could do it both. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
You could do it multiple times throughout the day.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. It'll be a fun conversation with him. I'm sure he'll have some interesting objections to that one.
What type of services can you do on site quickly that you could do at a dog park? I mean, what are you talking about?
Like a general wellness exam, vaccinations, some diagnostic stuff. Like, and this is getting a little gross. Like blood draws or fecal exams. You obviously can't do surgeries or anything that requires anesthesia or.
Yeah. Okay. So what are you recommending if you do find something that they need to go and have a surgery or go have more testing? Are you recommending them to go to your office then, or?
Yeah, we don't have an office, so there's two ways. Either we will recommend them that they go to a clinic, or we're investigating some sort of a white glove treatment where we take the dog. We have a vet take the dog to the clinic and perform the services, but we haven't really gotten there yet. We're trying to keep it simple right now and keep the service just stuff that can be done in the house. Supposedly 80% of all procedures that happen in a vet clinic could actually be done anywhere.
Yeah.
That's something we're trying to take advantage of, and it's trying to prove that number is even real.
The other thing that we think about when we're trying to build our own channel is, this term that Kevin DeWalt phrased called helpful marketing. And the idea is that you're exchanging your expertise for someone else's attention. So blogging is, is sort of the most common form of this. Other forms, and it could be like, what's something valuable you guys could offer to people in exchange for their attention?
Well, it's interesting you asked that. A previous incarnation of our company was a free question and answer service, and we actually just started re-promoting that, but just in Seattle, and then with the idea being, oh shit, I'm getting a call
From a customer
for the service. Yeah.
Do it, man. Do it. Awesome. That's great. I love it. Yeah.
Shit, I missed the call.
All right. Okay. Well, call them back. And customers are more important than we are.
That's right.
All right. So hit us back when you're done, and
Sorry, I missed it. I missed it.
Oh, can you don't have their contact information that you can't call
Well,
them back?
the way I've set it up with this call forwarding, I get, it's a long story. No, but it takes me a few minutes to get it. But
Well, seriously, dude. Like, I would prioritize that
no,
customer
worry,
call.
I'm gonna go try to get the call information right now and call them back when.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a delay with our analytics, but
I see.
maybe that's a good segue to go on to somebody else.
Well, I mean, I still want to. I would love to. Oh, I would love to explore more of this helpful marketing strategy. Where, I mean, it's summer in Seattle now, and I don't know. Have you been to summer in Seattle?
No.
We're getting there, and it's fucking gorgeous, and everyone is outside.
Summertime in Seattle. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's so people are going to be outside all the time. Is there some sort of free clinic that you could offer that's like, hey, bring your dog down here, and we'll teach you something.
Interesting.
We'll teach you how to clean your dog's teeth, or how to, I don't know, what to feed your dog, or what to, summertime, keep your dog cool in the summer, like can you create your own meetup group for dog owners, or can you participate in other dog owner meetups groups?
That's a good idea.
Or could you have a clinic that you guys provide that and partner up with a grooming service and partner up with, I don't know, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Just have a maintain and update your dog day. I don't know.
Yeah.
And when do you get to go to Seattle? Like, when will you guys be in the same? Well, when will you be in Seattle? That's going to be sounds good.
Yeah, it's good. That's a complicated question, but hopefully sooner rather than later.
Okay.
But yeah, that's something we've been trying to figure out.
I see. And does it make any sense to do weekend trips? Where is you have a third founder, right?
Yeah.
Where's he at?
He's also here in the Bay Area.
I see. Because flights are what, $200 there and back?
Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're more. It's been a little bit challenging lately to get it good. But yeah, I realize that I need to be spending more time in Seattle, or we need to start doing stuff in San Francisco.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Like to have the team spread, it's. I think you'll go faster if you're all in the same room.
Yeah. Towards that end, we're really trying to get into some sort of an incubator here, which would be a nice impetus to get him down here, get the vet down here, and we can focus on San Francisco.
Yeah, that sounds good. Cool. All right. So what do you think? What are your takeaways from this little?
Well, I got some interesting ideas around this sort of just guerrilla mini clinic idea of just showing up. It'll be a bit of a sales job on my co-founder to get him excited about that, as well as some of these meetups, and it's not necessarily a direct thing, or I guess it could be viewed as a direct thing.
Right.
But yeah, I guess more than anything, it just helped me kind of crystallize the fact that channels are the one thing we should be experimenting with right now. Let's find a somewhat reliable channel, and then we can start playing with different prices or different structures for pricing or different kinds of products.
Right. No, that makes sense.
I just had a quick thought. With it being summer and stuff, there's a lot of 5Ks and a lot of walks and fundraisers and stuff. Have you looked at like the Humane Society, like when they do their walks and people bring out their dogs and?
Yeah, we've done some of that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great idea, though. The other thing is that if there are so many vets sort of laying around, like we talked about previously, is there something that you guys, can you rent your own vet for these sessions and run your own guerrilla marketing stuff down in the Bay Area if it's too hard to get your guy down? Definitely,
yeah. I mean, that's something that we've or at least I have considered. Certainly. That's just a matter of money and paying someone maybe by the hour.
Right. And if you're covering costs on these clinics, then maybe you're okay.
Yeah. Hopefully, it would at least break even.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and then just the last thing about the meetup stuff. Really, there, you can hop into other people's meetups, but then again, you're in an intermediated channel.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go the meetup route and you want to go with it, like, hey, we're trying to test direct channels, consider building your own meetup, which is work. There's no two ways about it. It's a lot of work to go get those people together, but you get to own that channel.
Yeah. Yeah. Point taken.
Cool.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, sure thing, sure thing. Feel free to stick around or roll on and call back your customer.
Well, I'm going to try to do that right now. I look forward to hearing the other stuff.
Cool. All right, Beth, how you doing?
I'm good. It's so funny to hear you talk about Meetup. I lived in Chicago 10 years, and I loved Meetup groups. It was a great way to find different people, and I just looked at Meetup a couple weeks ago here where I live in the middle of nowhere, Ohio, and there's not a Meetup to be found in like a 2-hour radius. And I'm like, of any nature, like zero. Like if people don't use Meetup here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's a bummer. But
yeah.
anyway, so I guess kind of where I'm stuck on a couple of things is I found some good research and some good data on hearing impaired community in general. There's 34 million people that are hearing impaired. There are 8.5 million people who are actually wearing hearing aids of those 35 million that are impaired.
Okay.
So there's only 24% of the population that are wearing hearing aids versus what could be, all the other people that are hearing impaired and say, I don't want or don't need a hearing aid.
Okay.
So that helped me quantify it. Like, okay, there's 8.5 million hearing aid wearers out there. How can I talk to more of them? Because, I've done the M-Turking thing, which has gotten me 10 interviews, which is good. But I just feel like, okay, outside of calling the audiologist and say, give me your patient list, I'm struggling with how to reach out to my audience a little better.
That makes sense. So, and what's the goal of reaching out to your audience at this point?
Just to continue to do interviews.
Mm.
I don't know what that magic number is how many interviews I have to do and how much feedback I have to get. The interviews I have had have been, it's such an emotional roller coaster. I have such great interviews and I feel like, yes, this is something people want and people need, and I'm ready to go. And then I'll have another interview and they're like, no, I wouldn't use that service.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I feel completely like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of up and down. But at the same time, I've had some interviews where people say, no, I haven't thought of buying my hearing aid batteries online, but that's a really interesting idea. What's the website? And I'm like, I don't have a website. So, and I'm not saying that, but I'm like, oh, let me take your email. I'll be happy to update you with where we're at, going forward and that. So I think it's one of those things where once we talk about the idea after the interview, people are kind of excited about it and don't realize that, yes, they would do that, or they would be interested in it. So, so I guess I'm fluctuating with, do I need to do more interviews? How many interviews do I need to do, and where can I find these people?
All right, it makes sense. The emotional roller coaster is definitely something I'm familiar with. Where it's like the day went well if someone said that they were excited about the idea, right?
Yep.
And it's a shitty day if they were not interested in the idea or their problems didn't mention the thing that I thought.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah. So I mean, in here we sort of have two choices, right? One is we can either keep hanging out on the roller coaster, right? Which to be clear, the roller coaster is a thinly veiled. It's a manifestation of our emotional attachment to a particular idea, right? Like, if we were completely devoid of attachment to a particular solution, which is only attainable by a robot, but if we were, we would simply, like, every interview would have the same quality, and we would sort of revere each interview for the truth that it unfolded, whatever that truth was, right? And like, oh my gosh, I had such a good interview today because I learned the following things, right? And the interview quality would be based on learning and not based on, learning a particular thing that, sort of tipped the scales in one way or the other.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the heart of why this stuff is so difficult to practice, right? Because, we've talked about this before, right? The nature, all of us have this nature of like, look, I've got this idea, I want to go build it, I want to see it live, and maybe it dies, maybe it doesn't, but like I want to go create this thing. And so what you're going through is like a classic conflict between these two things, and what's the only thing that's unclassical about the way you're going about it is that you haven't given up yet on the understanding your customer's problems, and you haven't gone and just built it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'll just throw out as, again, a total option. Like it's not the worst thing in the world to go and run this thing, right? Like I said before, you might be right, it might be a big thing. And the thing that I would rather see you make progress in a direction, even if it's not quote-unquote the right direction, than to have you feel like sort of stuck and be like in this world between like, I really want people to say this thing, and they're not saying it, and I'm not doing anything, and get frustrated. So, talk to me about where are you in like is this an enjoyable experience phase? Like talk to me about your overall process and what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's fun. You can never predict what the customer's going to tell you. I mean, that's been shocking to me. Like, to give you an example, when we were talking in our cat call a couple weeks ago, the idea of accessorizing or personalizing your hearing aids came up and making them fun, cool patterns and things. There's a service out there that really doesn't exist. People are using like what women use for their nails to change their nail colors and like morphing them into fitting their hearing aids. So I added that to my customer interviews of asking people if they're interested in personalizing hearing aids, what their thoughts are around that. Are they currently doing that? And I had an 81-year-old man on the phone with me, and I was embarrassed to almost ask him this question because I thought there's no way this guy's going to want to make his hearing aids a pattern or a color. And he said, "Oh, absolutely. I want gold-plated hearing aids with diamonds. That'd be awesome." And I'm like, okay. So that just told me, like, you never know. You just never know. But so no, I am definitely enjoying it. I just I feel pretty strongly that it's the caretakers that is our niche that I need to kind of continue to pursue. Yeah, I don't know. Do I need to have 50 interviews with caretakers to feel like I've really understood my market or understood my customer? The 20 I've had, is that enough? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a great question. So what we normally say with any of these experiments is that, like we were talking with Joe, it's all about a return on investment. So right now, if we think about your experiments or interviews, what would you consider the return for your investment? What are you looking to get back?
From my interviews, just validation. You know. And it's just I'm gathering information, you know. I mean, they're telling me their challenges are all over the board. I haven't really found a consistent pattern of what their challenges are. It's truly all over the board. There's a lot of problems with hearing aids, which I kind of knew that going in, but it's clear to me that maybe some of the problems aren't the problems that I want to fix necessarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if I don't know how much like doing a Google AdWords search is going to help me in this process. I don't think there's people out there typing or searching for hearing aid battery subscription service. You know what I mean? I don't think there are, but I feel like I'm hearing enough from people that it's a great idea and they love it because it's a pain in the butt to remember to get them at CVS for their grandpa who needs them. You know?
Yeah. Okay, so I think you're spot on. This idea of like hearing from them is a great return, and we might call that learning, right? So that the return is learning new things.
Yeah.
So we're done with our interviews when our returns are worth less than our investment, right? So in this case, when the time it takes to do interviews is worth less than the learning we get from them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And at this point, validation is important. I would say learning to validate whether or not this is a problem that people, that a subset of your customers are actively trying to solve now. Trying to validate that is really interesting as a byproduct of the learning. So what we might say is that, okay, you're going to interview X number of people who fulfill this criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And the criteria may be it's a caregiver of someone with hearing aids who is blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
Who either doesn't live with their person or does live with their person or lives in another state, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have this criteria, and then we're going to say that X% of those people are actively looking to solve this problem. Right? So that's going to validate that particular idea. So in terms of validation, one of the returns, we can sort of, I'm going to put this way of measuring that return on investment over here.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So we put together a structured experiment, says I will talk to X number of people,
Yeah.
Y percentage of them will demonstrate behavior that says they're actively looking to try and solve this problem. And one of those things, one of those questions could be, you know, when was the last time you bought hearing aid batteries for the person who needs them? And like that's it, right? Maybe that's it. If they bought 10 of them, that demonstrates that they're trying to solve the problem, right? If they bought them online, that demonstrates they're trying to solve the problem. Well, I don't know. What do you think? Talk to me.
Most of them, yeah, and I am asking that question, and most of them are saying, yeah, I buy them in bulk because it's a pain to go to the store every couple weeks and make sure he has a pack. Mm-hmm. Or it's me and my brother that take care of my grandma, and I don't ever remember if he's going to pick them up or if I said I was going to pick them up last time, and then neither of us pick them up, and then she doesn't have any, and then either we don't have any or we've got too many, you know? Mm-hmm. And so then after we talked and I kind of asked them their initial thoughts on my idea of a subscription service, they're like, man, that'd be awesome. That would solve our problem, you know? And it's like, so nobody's coming out and saying they're looking for this, but then when I kind of share them the idea, then they're all excited. So does that make them a potential customer?
Yeah. Well, I would put those in the early majority group.
Okay.
We talk about the early adopters versus early majority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So these are people who, once someone tells them about the service, they're like, yeah, this is cool and this is awesome, right? But they're not so troubled right now that they're actively going to look for it. So basically, there's only one person on the planet who's going to be telling people about it, or two people. This is you and your husband, right?
Right.
And so maybe we can build a business that way, right? Like, and maybe you can. Maybe you can brute force it, and you can sort of like make it happen that way. But unless we have the early adopters, it's only going to be you guys who are telling the world about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to do is I want to offer that as one potential way to measure when you're done. You just sort of put together an experiment and then you go off and you do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other way to think about it is to look. As long as I'm learning something new, I'm going to keep interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
As long as I keep hearing new problems, hearing new ways of things, then I'm going to keep interviewing. Once I get X number of interviews in a row, call it 3 interviews in a row, where I don't learn anything, I'm done.
Okay.
So I'll want to just call out the risks of this approach. That second approach is if like the situation you're in right now, where you're hearing problem from across the board, it might be an indication that that you are interviewing people across customer segments. So typically, if you interview more than, you're at 10 people now, typically if you're interviewing people within the same customer segment, they will start to have the same problems, and you start to hear the same things over and over again. So that, like, the 80-year-old, who was the person who told you about initially stylizing your stuff?
Mostly parents of young kids that have hearing aids and
Okay.
cochlear implants. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So then obviously these are vastly different customer segments, right? One is
Right.
a caregiver of someone who's young. The other is a person who's wearing hearing aids.
Right.
Right. So they'll have like totally different problems. And you know, we may find if you go down further and further. Did we ever do the extremes exercise?
Mm-mm.
The 2 extremes. Okay. So this is an exercise that I do when I'm trying to figure out, have I niched specifically enough?
Okay.
Okay. So the way this works is that let's take a segment. So give me the definition of someone who you think is going to be your ideal customer segment.
I think it's the person in their 40s or 50s that's caring for their parent who either lives with them or is in a nursing home or living on their own that they're caring for.
Okay, great. And presumably the person they're caring for has hearing aids.
What's that? Yes, obviously.
Okay. All right, great. So now let's take, so that's our customer segment. Now I want you to come up with 2 extremes. One person who is on one extreme, in one extreme of that situation, and another person who's in a far other extreme of that situation. So give me 2 different people and explain the 2 extremes of within this whole customer segment.
I think on one spectrum there's the caregiver of some. I think it's the person who has taken in their elderly parent who has hearing aids that lives with them, and they care for everything for that person. Maybe they aren't able to leave the home. And then I think the opposite would be somebody who cares for them, but that parent does not live with them. Is that extreme enough?
They're different. I'm not sure I would consider them the extreme. So I'll give you an example. One example comes to mind is one extreme is the son of a 103-year-old man who's in a nursing home, who has dementia and is barely recognizes his son when he comes in, and he has hearing aids, but sort of doesn't really matter. And the other extreme is someone who's just been foreclosed on their house and has moved into their parents' house, and their parent, who happens to be in fantastic health, but just happens to have gotten a brand new hearing aid.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Okay.
So these 2 people, if we took them and interviewed those 2 extremes, would they have the same problems with hearing aids?
No.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
they might, right? They might want to accessorize them, or they might have run out of batteries. But the truth is, like, we probably not, right?
Yeah,
the person
right.
who, like, so maybe we want to focus in, and even the distinction between, is the caregiver living with the person versus is the caregiver living in a separate house, and the person with the hearing aid has their own house, and is the person with the caregiver, or is the person with the hearing aid in a nursing home? Those are 3 different segments.
Yep.
Where you can come up with likely different problems, right? Maybe the problem is the nursing home doesn't give him batteries when he should, or or maybe like, why isn't this person buying their own hearing aid batteries? So maybe there's a component of immobility, or maybe there's a component of distance. So if you're looking for the early adopters, and you were looking for some consistency, I would consider honing in your focus extremely small. And I know it's going to be difficult to find these people to get interviews, and that sucks, but it also is representative of what it's going to take for these people to discover your service.
Yeah, that to me, I mean, it makes perfect sense, but it seems scary that I'm limiting myself to such a small group of people. I feel I'm already limiting myself by just saying I'm targeting caregivers of elderly parents with hearing aids. that to me sounds like I'm being very specific. But then when you say go dig deeper and get smaller and more niche, I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
I'm going to be left with like 4 people.
Right, right. Well, here's the good news. The good news is there are early majority. Like, we know that they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get the early adopters, once you get the people to start talking about your service, you're gonna light the fire, right? So basically, we found the pool of gasoline. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that there's people out there, or I mean, I don't know if we know. I've heard that you say there's some, right? So there's a question, but we have an indication that there is an early majority. What we're trying to do now is, by niching, we're not saying this is where your business is going to live forever and ever. Now we're looking for the spark. We're going to find that tiny little thing, the tiny combination of factors that's going to light this pool on fire.
Okay.
So that's your mission, is to go find these early adopters and do the very difficult work of finding them, really discovering their problems and building a product for them so that they can catch the early majority and light them up.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Hey, Doug, you there? If not, yes, Doug is here. He's just muted.
Yes, and I have audio too, actually.
Oh, very good. That's also helpful.
So, actually, today I didn't need a slot. I just wanted to drop in and listen.
Oh, cool.
Which has been helpful.
Okay,
so
awesome.
You focused my thinking around the early adopter segment a little bit, which is nice.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's something that we... Doug, I think we talked about this in a call recently. There's a lot of this stuff that we are still sort of finessing and trying to understand, and the relationship between early adopters and early majority and how that plays into the interviews is something that's sort of only coalesced, at least in my brain, within the last 6 months or so. And I don't have a lot of... There's a lot of people who will use those words, but like sort of combine them in concepts that are sort of consumable. I haven't even clearly thought about enough to write a blog post about it. So so you're not alone if it's scary to go niching crazy small.
What was interesting was that I've been thinking about early adopters as start with them because they're the first people that are going to buy your product, and that they're going to be easier to recruit, they're going to be easier to monetize, and through working with them, your cycles of iteration will be faster because they're buying it more and stuff. But I wasn't thinking about it from the perspective of they're going to be your allies in marketing, and they're going to help create the network effect that's going to promote your business beyond just your own efforts and amplify your own efforts. And thinking about them that way, is even more encouraging in terms of finding that group that's really going to be vocal about what you're doing.
Yeah, that's fantastic insight. Yeah, because you're right. Both sets of those qualities exist in early adopters, and they're awesome for both of those reasons.
Right.
They're just really hard to find.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, but you think in a world where we're so connected, they, if they're really having a problem, that they would be a little easier to find.
Sure.
So speaking of which, Beth, if you're game, I'd love to keep brainstorming. Well, who would your early adopters be, and how could we find them?
Beth, have you looked at online forums at all?
Yeah, mostly through Facebook. I've joined 14 different Facebook groups, and I've posted different questions, and I've gotten about 6 people that I've talked to through that. What I'm finding is that people are relying on their audiologist for information. So people aren't naturally they're not coming together as a community or a forum online and talking about this stuff. They're just, at least that's just not what I've been able to find anyway. But the funny part is that a lot of the problems that I am hearing from my interviews is that it's a lack of education. They go to the audiologist, their dad gets hearing aids, and there's no education on how to troubleshoot those hearing aids, how to fix them, how to clean them. It's just, poof, here's your $7,000 hearing aid, goodbye. You know, so there are a lot of questions. People are looking for knowledge, but I don't know if I see a ton of forums out there for that.
Did you just say $7,000?
For a hearing aid? Yeah, easy. Yeah. Yeah, my husband's are $3,500 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah, so yeah, they're not cheap, and they're only good for. My husband's had his now, the same set for 3.5 years, and they're kind of starting to crap out on him already. So he could be potentially buying new hearing aids again soon.
All right, so getting back to the early adopter, if we took the two extremes you had there, like if we were going to narrow in to one of the, what's your next step on narrowing? Who comes to mind on who would be the best place to start looking for early adopters? I mean, which segment? Sorry.
In your extreme scenario, or just in my caregivers?
Yeah, taking the caregiver. So we took the caregiver scenario. We did the extremes. We found that, oh my gosh, they're totally different. What's the next level in? Where would you focus your attentions after that?
I'd say the caregiver who has a parent who's in okay condition or in okay health, but just has a hearing aid and does not live with that person. But yet that caregiver might be, you know, bringing them meals, making sure they're bathing every couple of days, changing their hearing aid batteries, cleaning their hearing aid batteries, mowing their grass, you know.
Awesome.
That scenario.
That's fantastic, right? You're describing specific behaviors of someone. So now we're not describing them by demographics, which is awesome, because demographics are really hard to observe externally. But behaviors are easier to observe externally. So this behavior, like, hey, it's a caregiver for someone who has hearing aids, but the caregiver checks in on the person with hearing aids every, what do you think? How often?
Couple days, I would say.
Every couple days. Okay. Great. If you find 10 of those people and you ask them, what's the biggest problem about, what's the hardest part about having hearing aids, you know, taking care of someone with hearing aids, I can almost guarantee you they will start telling you the same thing over and over again. And that specific segment will have one set of probably 3 to 5 problems.
Okay. I guess like today I had a meeting with the director of social work at a nursing home to understand how those caregivers take care of their mom and dad who are in the nursing home, and how nursing homes use or how they take care of the hearing aids for their patient too. And it was interesting to get her perspective too. She explained that a pharmacy delivers hearing aid batteries and all the hearing aid accessories for the person as they need them, but it's an expense. It's very expensive because it's a pharmacy delivery fee and blah 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 blah. She couldn't give me the exact cost, but at the same time she said that, she's like, but they can also bring in their hearing aid batteries too. They don't have to go through the pharmacy service. So then that kind of brought a light bulb. I'm like, okay, so there is some wiggle room for somebody who could just have their hearing aid batteries delivered through our service directly to the nursing home without the pharmacy for a cheaper cost. You know what I mean? So anyway, but I feel like through the nursing home, I could certainly, other than like standing outside the nursing home and being like, hey, does your parent in the nursing home have hearing aids? You want to talk? Other than people I know, I don't know how to find these people. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I want to interview people I know necessarily.
Right.
So should I drive an hour away?
Drive an hour away. What's an hour away?
Just drive an hour away and talk to people there.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay, so a couple things come out of that. One is just this idea that when talking to the nursing home person, the person who works there, that like one of your key takeaways was that, oh, there's some wiggle room here for someone to deliver batteries. I'm starting, it's another one of these manifestations of the attachment to this particular idea. So I'm a little concerned that with the interviews that maybe we're missing some problems that person has because we're so focused on validating or invalidating this one idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just plant that seed that the interviews are most powerful when you sit back and receive the problems with open arms that you are offered,
mm-hmm.
and aren't sort of chasing after the highs and lows of validating one particular idea. So create an open space, an open place for them to talk about their problems, and then receive them, understand them at a very deep level, keep going, and then sort of that's the way to make the most use of the.
Yeah, I was kind of taken back by this person. The first thing she said to me was, "I don't have a lot of time. Tell me what your idea is, and I'll tell you if you like it." And I said,
Yeah.
"Well, I certainly don't want to start off with giving you my idea. I want to talk about you and your problems." And so we started it. So she was very,
Right. Which means that if she doesn't even want to talk about her problems, she's certainly not in the early majority, early adopters, early majority. She may be in late majority, if not laggards, right? Because like she's got bigger fish to fry, right? So that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah. And then as far as interviewing people you don't know, and like how the heck do you find these people? This is going to be hard for your business. It's going to be hard to figure out how to find caregivers of people with hearing aids who visit them a couple times a week, right? Like, and that's going to be a really difficult challenge with this business at all phases, right? It's going to be a challenge now. It's going to be a challenge later when you're trying to sell the thing. So let's put some attention and some time on trying to find this one segment and target it really, really hard. I don't have any fantastic ideas off the top of my head. The Facebook group might. I know my mother, who's in the Facebook group, she took care of she was a caregiver for my grandfather who had hearing aids, and visited him on a regular basis. So he's since passed away, so
I'll throw it out there. I'm plugging in my computer here, so
cool.
that's what I'm going away. Yeah, I actually I found a couple of like caregiver pages that were I've joined them. Haven't seen a ton of response with those either, but
Beth, can I ask how come you're focusing on caregivers first? Have you decided that they're more apt than the individual themselves?
Yeah, what I have found that the hearing aid wearers themselves, it's like brushing your teeth. They know they have to do it. They know they have to change their batteries. They take care of it. It's fine. But it's the people who are forgetful, or the elderly, or the children who need somebody to take care of them and pick up the batteries for themselves. That's where it becomes kind of a headache.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Beth, so what sort of experiment can we frame up here? Like, I want you to have like a framework to say, okay, I'm going to go do the following thing.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like?
Well, I definitely want to throw it out to the Facebook page and see if there's any other, people like you mentioned with your mom out there that I can get interviews with.
Beth, are you willing to spend any money?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. What you have in mind?
I wonder if you bought an ad on Google when people searched hearing aid batteries.
Mm-hmm.
And the ad said, subscription service coming soon, or sign up now. Never forget a battery again. Subscription service, and it just took them to a landing page where they could enter their email address when you were ready. It might be an interesting data point. How many clicks did you get, and after people clicked through, how many people actually left you their email address?
Yeah, I guess I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. Like, how do you know when you're ready for that?
You're ready.
Is that what I'm ready?
I know you're ready.
Tell me more, Doug.
No, I think it's an experiment, right? I mean, you're not promising that you're going to make the service. You're not making a sacred covenant that if they give you their email address, you're going to ship them batteries for the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're gauging interest, and I think if you got 10 people that gave you their email address, and that cost you $40 or something, those would be 10 really good interviews. Then you'd email them and say, hey, we're looking at doing the service, and can I talk to you a little bit more about it? And let's say half of them say yes. You might be able to start grouping them into a segment. 4 of those 5 looked like this, and that might help you to start refining and focusing that segment definition. Yeah, I mean, it's a potentially $60 experiment. You're going to spend $40 on Google AdWords and maybe $20 on the landing page, which can be super simple.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess my fear was that I put together a landing page and I have 10 people say they share their email address with me, and I feel like, what if I'm a year out from starting this, or 6 months out from starting this? Am I going to lose those first initial 10 people that were interested?
But you didn't have them in the first place.
If they've got the problem now, they will have a problem in a year.
Right. You're not. I don't think you're going to. I don't think you're going to piss them off so badly that they tell everybody in the community and no one ever comes to your site again. I mean, it's so funny because, of course, that's the fear that I have, and it took me 3 weeks. I was in this program that was a 5-week program, and they're like, build a landing page, and I totally wasn't ready. I didn't want to do it, and after 3 weeks of 10 people pounding on me, finally I did it, and it was totally my own internal emotional issue. That was what I had to get over.
I understand that. What tool did you use to do your landing page?
So that was an interesting story. I'm gonna, whoops, no, like that. I used, I'm on a Mac, and I used my Mac to build it because I, use Mac software.
Okay.
And I put it up. We put it up, and we started getting feedback that like half the people weren't able to see it correctly because they were using it on their phone.
Oh.
And because I'm an old guy, my reaction was, "Why are you looking at a web page on your phone?" and and then the reality was, like, literally 60% of the people that came to the site were coming on their phone. So that night, I changed it over, and I ended up using a tool called Webflow, Webflow.
Okay.
It's a phenomenal. It's not specifically designed just for landing pages, so it's not like LaunchRock or Unbounce or those different services.
Okay.
And it doesn't have as many templates, so I'm not sure that's the one I'd recommend now, but I would recommend using a service that has what's called a responsive design.
Okay.
Because that means that you can design it one way, but then if someone's looking at it on a phone, it looks good, and if they're looking at it on a computer, it looks good.
Okay.
And Unbounce, which is kind of one of the market leaders, doesn't actually have a good responsive solution yet. So they're working on it, but they don't have it yet. So
it's true.
I wouldn't use them. But there's a bunch of other services that have templates and are super easy, and you just fill in the blanks and upload a graphic.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
for $5 a month or $10 a month or something,
Okay.
we'll get you. And I just think it would be a helpful. It'd give you another opportunity to get data
Right.
if you had the page up.
Yep. And at least when people ask me what my website is, I can point them to a
Right.
website.
Exactly.
Which my husband has. He has one. It's not an active website, but he's built the page and stuff. But because he's more of a techie than I am with that, so okay. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I want to touch on two other things. One is I love what Doug's talking about here. It's one other channel to get interviews with. Be careful in that we already can see that the generic caregiver or the generic person with hearing aids has problems across several different segments. And so just be careful that you may be repeating the same issues you're having right now if you're collecting email addresses from people across multiple segments it's not going to help you learn, right? It's not going to help us really solidify the problems. So just make sure that the people you do talk to as a result of any sort of experiments are targeted within a small segment. And then the other thing was, just brainstorm. So you and Greg get together and brainstorm all the different possible ways that you could find these people. That helpful marketing thing that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if no one's giving advice on how to clean your hearing aid batteries, your $7,000 hearing aid batteries, maybe there's a blog post for that. Or maybe there's a webinar, or maybe there's something out there for that. And you might be able to do something similar.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think that would be fun if we had brainstorming sessions. If we just had a group brainstorming sessions. I don't know, where someone says, "Okay, here's what I need," and we just all throw out a bunch of different ideas, and then people kind of go back and prioritize them.
Absolutely. No, I think that'd be awesome.
All right, so I'll put that on my list to think about. Awesome, team. Well, great job on office hours today. Next week we'll be back at roughly the same time-ish. And if you got any feedback on the office hours process, please let me know.
Cool. Thanks for your time, guys. I appreciate it.
Sure
Yeah.
thing.
Justin,
All right.
I have a tech question for you.
Sure.
Our red team moved the meeting from Monday to Wednesday. Is the URL in your "Hey, here's your time" going to work?
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. Yeah. So good question. Everything should work smoothly except the notifications you get. Those will all be off.
Right.
Cool. All right. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.